I recently acquired a Amazon return box, and in it was probably the most interesting piece of tech I ever came across. A gaming PC. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit anticlimactic considering that visibly it looked fairly basic upon initial impressions, and the part selection isn't really all that impressive. However, the platform itself is something that I have gravitated towards. This PC comes with a 588GB graphics card, an X99 motherboard of some sort, and the Intel i7-5960X. One of the first processors to ever support DDR4 RAM. Moreover, this processor itself is an 8-core 16-thread monster that came out exactly 10 years ago at $1,000. When this came out, it was an absolute beast, with productivity and gaming being the main focus of this chip, and it took the PC space by storm and solidified Intel at being the best CPUs for gaming at that time. Now, the other parts are what pulled this PC back tremendously. The motherboard was interesting, and I was not able to locate the brand in the BIOS, nor did it have any type of branding on the motherboard itself. The only branding it had ATI SLI graphics support, which no longer exists. I tried comparing this to the other X99 boards with similar specs and could not find any match, so if someone can educate me on this, please let me know down in the comments below. I would love to learn more information on this board. Now, before we get into the specs, I wanted to go ahead and talk about the ones in charge of selling this PC. Now, the company building this PC configuration is called Akvin. They have a lot of PC builds on Amazon with identical specs throughout their inventory. And obviously you could tell this PC brand got the cheapest parts they could come up with and get their hands on, and slap the i7 gaming PC on their search tags in order to flip and profit off uneducated customers. They paired this processor with an unbranded motherboard and a really bad GameMax 650-watt power supply, questionable RAM, and a faulty SSD, which I had trouble with and eventually had to replace. Even the 580 graphics card was a little bit sus because it came with an entirely new backplate and brand new heat sinks and fans that you can find at AliExpress for fairly cheap. So I have no idea if this came from mining rig or how long it's been utilized for. Furthermore, after checking out the PC to see what processor it had, I found that they never removed the sticker from the heatsink of the CPU cooler. And on top of that, the RAM was on the wrong slots, covering the 3rd and 4th channels, which is incorrect if you want to run dual channel. So a lot of huge quality issues from their PCs, and the reviews speak for themselves. Nevertheless, the cable management was fairly decent and the case itself was okay, with an infinity mirror in the front. Honestly, I thought that was kind of neat. However, I wasn't necessarily concerned about the PC itself, rather I was intrigued by the i7-5960X, and well, it got me thinking, how well does a PC of this spec perform with modern competitive titles? Since this PC was going to a family member, I didn't necessarily have a lot of time with it. I only had enough time to test 1080p average frame rate results of 3 games at medium to low settings. So no 1% lows, no latency tests. Sorry guys. Unfortunately, I had to slap on a new power supply and a new SSD with fresh install of Windows and got to benchmarking. At 1080p using the 588GB, Overwatch averaged about 114 FPS at medium settings, and Valorant averaged about 150 FPS at low settings. I noticed a bit of micro stutters when there was a lot of action going on, and even when firing my weapon, I would sometimes feel a little bit sluggish. However, I decided to swap out graphics cards and use my personal 7800 XT. At 1080p, I was averaging about 126 FPS on CS2 on high settings, 165 FPS on Overwatch on medium settings, and about 242 FPS on Valorant using low settings. I noticed a huge improvement with stability and micro stuttering, and overall was an impressive gaming experience. There was still some latency issues and the gameplay itself felt a little bit inconsistent. Considering that the games selected were more CPU intensive, it gave me a good idea about how well this CPU performed in gaming. So yeah, this processor isn't really all that impressive compared to today's CPUs, but these can be had for only $30 to $50 on eBay. Throw in an X99 motherboard, additional RAM for 60 bucks, you know, case, power supply, used graphics card, and you're looking at a budget gaming PC for less than $300 for fairly decent performance. And even after all these years, it could still run games with some hiccup, but considering that it's already 10 years old, it's definitely very impressive. of how advanced this processor was. This processor aged like subpar wine, I guess. However, I feel like with modern budget CPUs, they simply have an easy edge over the 5960X. But I cannot help but appreciate the overall success this architecture had to offer. I know this video is a little bit different than my typical videos, but if you guys enjoyed the video, hey, be sure to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Deuces.